Good morning. Following DOCC's requirements, I am Vincent Gray, and I work for the city. We're excited to be out here at City Center, a project site that, as you can see, will make some small contribution to the continued growth and development of our city. It's absolutely amazing to me how this project has come along, and frankly is a credit to some folks who I will mention very shortly, who've done a great job with this from its inception, and also, I guess, to improved technology, if you will, in the field of construction. I'm here with our Deputy Mayor, Victor Hoskins, today. Victor, glad you're here. And of course, you may well hear from him, and our City Administrator, who is here today, and our Chief of Staff. We got the whole crew out today. And you're going to hear from Harold Pettigrew as well, who's the Director of our Department of Small Local Business Development, to talk about what will be comprehensive reforms in the CBE program. I want to acknowledge, too, I think I see him back there, is Councilmember Vincent Orange, who has oversight responsibility. I want to thank Councilmember Orange for his work and for coming out to be with us today. Councilmember, once they do the presentation, I'd like you to come up and have a few comments. Also want to thank Bill Alsop. Bill is a great friend. He's a great friend to this city, and really, if there's one person that we can point to and thank for this project, it's Bill. I know it's Heinz Archstone, but Bill Alsop is the guy who has been the leader on this. Howard Riker is with us today, Jason Jacobson, all from Heinz Archstone. I want to thank you all for hosting us here today. The glass has gone up in the buildings, and we think it's looking great. I think we're on time, on budget. Right, Bill? And if we're not, don't tell me. And we're delighted with the progress that's been made. You all will recall, hopefully, that we broke ground on City Center, D.C., which actually used to be the site of the convention center before the building across the street was constructed. We broke ground back in April of 2011. At the time, I think we believed the $700 million project was the largest of its kind on the East Coast. We know this site at one time was considered to be the most valuable site on the East Coast. And I want to thank the state of Qatar also. I've actually been out here several times to see the progress being made, and I've been here with the ambassador. For those of you who have looked at the One City Action Plan, you will see a picture of City Center in there, and you will see a picture of myself and the ambassador when we came out to visit the site. The City Center, just by way of background, City Center is a 10-acre mixed-use development which is located on a 4.5-block parcel right here on New York Avenue, and of course we have 8th Street and 9th Street and 11th Street. And by the way, just so you know, in many, many years, 10th Street will be reopened so that what you see, in between these buildings will ultimately be 10th Street. Where am I? I'm disoriented. Oh, over here. There. 10th Street will be between 9th and 11th. Isn't that creative? There will be mixed income housing, retail, hotel, and public open spaces. And also, it is and will continue to be a real opportunity for our CBEs here in the District of Columbia. So, with all of this going on, to me it makes sense to be able to announce what we're doing with the CBE program. As we stated in the One City Action Plan, building resilient, diversified small and local businesses is a critical part of my strategy for developing a new economy here in the District of Columbia. An economy that ultimately we hope will be less dependent upon the federal government. And I think we all know with the threat of sequestration and frankly the continued threat of reductions in the scope of the federal government that we need to go in another direction, and that's exactly what we have been pursuing. City Center D.C. is critical to our economy in some of the ways that I've already mentioned. City Center has afforded CBEs already just in the time that this construction has been underway, an opportunity for $50 million in business just on this one project. And while that's a great start, we believe by the time that this is finished, CBEs will have experienced $195 million in opportunities on this project. The CBE program provides district-based firms with advantages in doing business with the district government and expands the availability of business opportunities with district-sponsored development projects. In order to be eligible for CBE certification, a business enterprise must meet a local standard to demonstrate that it is a bona fide district-based enterprise. And I've actually had people almost outraged indicate how difficult it is for them to get into the program. One person I asked, I said, well, where are you located? And they said, east of the river. And I knew right away that was a sign. I said, well, where east of the river? The person said, well, in Maryland, but I'm planning to move into the District of Columbia. So, yeah, okay. I said, well, come back and see us when you move into the District of Columbia. We know its acronyms have changed over the 30 years of existence, but the district's CBE program has always been one of the most progressive local business inclusion programs in the nation, even with the problems that we are trying to correct at this stage. The CBE program bolsters the competitiveness of local businesses by providing them with preference points or price reductions depending on what the contract is. And we believe that California is the only state, even again with the challenge that we have in this program, California is the only state that has a program that is more progressive and advanced than the one that we have here in the District of Columbia. The problems that we're trying to correct predate us, but that doesn't matter. It's our responsibility now, and we are committed to being able to correct those problems. In a few minutes, you're going to hear from Harold Pettigrew, who directs the agency that manages the CBE program. And Harold, during his time there, has been responsible for bringing on board Export DC, a grant that we were successful in obtaining through the Department of Commerce, Fast Track DC, which was the result of a relationship with the Kauffman Foundation, and then the Procurement Technical Assistance Program, which has helped to create more business and bring more business into the pipeline. In July 3rd to be specific, I directed the agency and Harold to do a thorough review of the LSDBE program, the CBE program in the city. And there are lots of reforms that are going to be proposed, essentially in three thematic areas. First of all, I don't think I have, and I don't think anybody else has met a business owner who loved to be able to fill out government forms. And if you did, there is something wrong with you. So that will be one of the efforts that we make, and that is to streamline the certification process. We have to do a better job with our own government agencies and make sure they understand that it is imperative that they do business with CBEs. You know, what gets measured gets done, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to step up the measurement of performance of our own agencies. Thirdly, we are going to, in addition to improving the certification process, we also are going to improve compliance and enforcement in the program, which undeniably have been challenges. And some of that, frankly, is because there are the agency is so on demand. We have about 20 people who work in this department, and that is far less the number than we need to be able to do this work. And frankly, there is no question that there have been some bad actors. There have been some people who really have taken advantage of this program, and we intend to crack down on that behavior. We're also going to launch spot investigations. We're going to vest the director with the authority to revoke CBE certifications, and assess penalties and fines for noncompliance. And we're going to move the appeals function from the now defunct Small and Local Business Opportunity Commission to the Office of Administrative Hearings, which is far better equipped to be able to deal with those functions. So there's a lot that's going on. We recognize the importance of small business, are committed to it. Again, I want to thank City Center. I want to thank Heinz Archstone, which is a JV, for supporting our small business, JV meaning joint venture, for supporting our small business. Again, I want to thank Bill, I want to thank Howard, and I want to thank Jason for the work that they have done on this project and hosting us here today. I also want to thank Loretta Caldwell. I've known Loretta for a long time, and she really has been a stalwart in the city, working on behalf of small businesses, and frankly working on behalf of assisting us to get people back to work in the District of Columbia. I've seen her at job fairs. She's been out at One City, One Hire events. She's been there many, many steps along the way. So, Loretta, I want to thank you for continuing to be such a supporter of the city. Also, we're joined by Norman Jones. We're going to hear from Norman. Norman is the guy. He's the CEO of the Capital Energy Group, and they are responsible for putting in the glass in the condos, in the building, right? Which I think is, it's been a phenomenal experience. We want to hear from you once Harold is finished about what this has meant to you and your firm. So, with that having been said, I want to now bring up our director of DSLBD, who's going to tell you all the wonderful things that we're going to do to be able to, and all kidding aside, to be able to have this program fulfill the promise that it has. We don't want the program described as something that someone has taken advantage of, that people have manipulated joint ventures, that people have skirted compliance, that they recognize that enforcement is completely undermanned, that they scoff at certification. Those are the things that we want to address, and today begins in earnest and in a formal way that process. We will submit legislation, but it won't be today. It will be in a matter of a short time. We've been working, you'll hear from Councilmember Orange, but we've already been working with him because this is an issue that's very important to him as well. So please join me in welcoming Harold Pettigrew.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you first for being here. This is certainly an exciting day for me personally, but certainly an exciting day for the agency. Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for your energy and urgency to get this done and to get us to this point today for what will be ultimately a historic day for the evolution of this program, for a program that's been really steeped in the history of this city. This program goes back to the 1970s, in 1977 specifically, where it was established for the specific purpose of investing in our local companies and making sure that the companies that are here investing in this city are getting a piece happening within our government. During that time period, the program grew through 1985 to approximately 450 companies that were certified. Those companies were able to take advantage of the opportunities that came from the district government. And the program continued to grow throughout the 90s through 2000, where we now have over 1,100 companies that are certified in the program. That represents over 260% growth from the companies that the agency have worked with throughout the years, again, from 450 to 1,200. Where we are now being able to deal with more companies and take advantage of more opportunities. But what the challenge has been, and a startling number I like to bring out, is that since 2009, we've experienced a significant reduction in the resources able to manage and help assist those companies with getting certified. Since 2009, we experienced a 58% reduction in staff to be able to manage the CBE program. In 1985, we can equate that. I'm an operations guy, so I like to deal with numbers. In 1985, that gives us per employee at DSLBD 45 companies that were managed. By 2012, in our numbers, we're talking about 238 companies per employee. Significant growth. Significant growth in the program. Significant firms that are taking part and participating in the program. And what we've established is that something very simple, that the resources of the program have never matched its ambitions. The ambitions for this program have been great, and they've grown throughout the years, yet the resources have not matched that ambition. That's what brings us here today. And what we have is a backdrop of a wonderful project that the mayor talked about. And so I won't go into too much detail, but it stands as an iconic structure that we will look back and be able to say our certified companies took part. You'll hear from Norman Jones, and you'll be able to see as you're driving down the street or walking and taking advantage of the new retail opportunities that'll be here, you'll see evidence of his work day in, day out. This is a success of the program. And while, as the mayor said, we have had bad actors, what we cannot do is allow for a few bad actors to cast a gross generalization over the success of the program throughout the years. I know many of you are disappointed about the baseball season. Nationals, we hope went a little further. We know their season has come to a close, and their season has ended, and we'll look forward to next year and everything else. But what we do know, anytime you go past that stadium, you'll see reflected in that beautiful building the work of our certified companies. We have Luke Brahmi here from Gelberg Signs, one of our few companies here that are able to fabricate and develop signs. His work being displayed all throughout that building. This, again, is one of the many examples that we have throughout the city of iconic structures that include the work of our certified companies. Just as much as we speak about our successes, we have to be unafraid to speak about our challenges and to highlight them and to talk about what we're going to do in terms of the pathway forward to fix them. In July 2012, as the mayor mentioned, he charged me and the agency with doing a review of the CBE program to identify its challenges, to identify its problems legislatively, through regulation as well as operations, so that we can begin to get at the issues that have long plagued over decades this program. We were able to complete our first run at the review in September. The mayor set a lightning pace for us to be here today. We know that comprehensively, and I'll talk about in a moment some of the things we're going to look to do, but we're talking about a little over 3 month period from the request from the mayor to where we are here today. And the mayor has been decisive in making sure that his agencies are in support of what it is that we're doing. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I can't thank you enough for setting the urgency and setting the pace for us to be here today to outline many of the challenges that we've known that have plagued the program throughout the years, but not just to outline the challenges, but to lay a pathway for the future and to address those challenges. We were able to outline 19 recommendations, some of which are long-term in nature. But we wanted to make sure that these items were highlighted so that folks know that we're looking comprehensively at this program. One of the areas that we looked at, what we decided also, instead of the long-term items, was to also lay out what was short-term and what was actionable. And what you have is the overwhelming majority of our recommendations that focus in that regard. Specifically, and I know this is all of what you all are looking for, some of the specific recommendations, and you heard the mayor talk about a few. Providing the agency with the authority to assess penalties, to enforce the regulations of the program, to make sure that the agency has the adequate authority to pursue individuals who are in the CBE program. The second general area, aside from the authority, is the resources. The mayor has committed resources for us to develop and launch over the coming months a new compliance and enforcement team that will manage day-to-day the operations of this unit. The third area, we'll be rolling out tools and technology to allow for us to be proactive in managing the program, but to stay ahead of issues that we know that are going to arise. Specifically under those three areas, authority, resources, and tools. We'll focus on, first with authority, as I mentioned, the authority to impose fees, but also the authority to revoke certifications for companies that are bad actors, as the mayor mentioned before. This also includes not only certified companies, but joint ventures, specifically CBEs as well as non-CBEs. Our efforts will also focus on creating within our regulation greater parameters by which joint venturers come together to ensure that CBEs, through their capacity, can handle the ownership levels that are being put forward. We'll also look to, and those in the program know that through each of our projects that are with private developments, the agency will enter into a CBE agreement, which outlines the requirements for that development project to utilize our certified companies at a 35% level of the project. Those CBE agreements were never codified in law. They were always codified by a contract. And what we're going to make sure is that they're in law, so that once we enter into these particular projects, that the requirements to subcontract with our certified companies are in the code and in law. We'll also launch spot investigations with the new team to ensure that once a company leaves the certification process and they come to get certified 2 years later, that at some touch point during that period, our agency has visited to make sure that they're a bona fide district-based business. This is some of the recommendations that we've outlined. And what you will see, and the deadline is by the end of this month, Mr. Mayor, that you laid out to us, and we will meet that. By October 31st, Councilmember Orange, we will be in your office shortly to make sure that we are working together on this. I've been very clear about the directive. October 31st is where, but before then, actually, we will have put forward the legislation to the council. These key reforms have been needed so that we can ensure that this program stays with the times, that is modernized in such a way that it continues to be a part of the mayor's vision for a new economy. We want to make sure that as we bring on new programs, as we're looking to export overseas and we're looking to help companies even greater take advantage of opportunities in the federal government, that we don't forget our core programs and make sure that we provide the same energy and focus to those programs as we do our local programs that have always been with us and anchored the agency. I want to thank you all for coming here today, because what we have, and as the mayor mentioned, this program is one of the most progressive local inclusion programs, not only throughout the country, Mr. Mayor, but I would say throughout the world. We've had conversations with countries such as South Africa who've looked at our model and have looked to our guidance to help them develop programs in their respective country. So again, I want to thank you for coming here today, because this truly is a historic day for the agency. I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your vision, Mr. Deputy Mayor, certainly for your support and direction. Thank you all for coming.
All right, I mentioned Norman Jones a few minutes ago, who's with the Capital Energy Group. He is, I think, illustrative of what can be done in a positive sense with this program. And this is what we want to emulate, expand, replicate, whatever CATE word you want to use. Anyway, please join me in welcoming Norman Jones. Come on up, Norman.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Norman Jones. I'm the president, CEO of Capital Energy Group. We're a local-based business here in D.C. I'm a longtime D.C. resident, went to school here. I still reside here in Ward 5. And I take great pride being here today and having you all here today to see the work that we're doing here at City Center. With the CBE program, how we were able to grow our business within the short span of 4 years since we've been involved with the C-SPAN program, going on 5 years now. With the help of Clark Construction Company, and my good friend Matt Haas is there. Without him, I wouldn't be on this site. Mike Green with Hines, very helpful in me being here. but also with Harmon Glass, who Matt introduced me to as becoming my joint venture partner to enable me to work on this project. Harmon has really embraced me the way that a true partner is supposed to embrace the CBE. They've given me all of the technical assistance I needed. They've given me all the financial assistance I needed to make my payroll each week, to make sure we pay our taxes, we pay our insurance, to cover our bonding. So, I mean, this relationship has been outstanding. At one time, it was not always the case. I've been approached several times in years past by companies that really wanted to just use me as a pass-through, but that's not the way I wanted to grow my company. The biggest thing for me, outside, of course, as any business want to make money, is employing the residents. Currently, we have over 72 employees, I think, with the 4 hires that we did this week. And that's what gives me great pride, Mr. Mayor. And as you had mentioned about one city, this lines up to what you have been talking about with one city that's coming together with all the companies employing D.C. residents. We've partnered with Department of Employment Services, along with local 5 Iron Workers Union, to have an apprenticeship program that's set up. We have several apprentices that are on site here that have the responsibility, not just on the job training, but we're also sending them to class every Monday and Wednesday for them to learn how to read blueprints so they can in turn grow themselves outside of just what we're doing. We want to continue to have work available for them so when they leave this job, there's always still work available. Unlike in sometimes in the past when a job is completed, a lot of the companies that leave town and leave these apprentices unemployed. Within a short period of time with this project, as well as other projects in D.C. that we've been doing through the CBE program, we've grown from $0 to $50 million a year in revenues. And D.C. is the construction capital. Thank you. And D.C. is now the construction capital of the country. And I stood on the top of the roof yesterday and looked around and saw all the cranes. It's amazing as you ride through, everyone's coming to D.C. for work. And I think with this program now, having more bite to it, to make sure that the companies that come here to joint venture with the CBEs are doing it the right way. So again, I want to thank Mr. Mayor, Mr. Deputy Mayor as well, again with Matt Haas and Clark Construction Company. One of the things what they did, they had me to enter into an agreement with Harmon Glass to mentor me over a 3-year period. So they said, we're not just going to allow you to just use Norman for City Center. We want you to mentor him for 3 years, bring him on other projects, which they've done. And I said they've given me all of the assistance that I could have ever imagined. So again, we want to do it right by hiring the residents here in D.C., employing them. With our apprentices, they start off on average about $17 an hour. We have some guys on this project making over $60 an hour, which is a good salary. So we want to continue to grow through the CBE program. Again, I thank my good friend Harold for inviting me, and we're going to continue to do the right thing, Mayor. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You know, what a succinct statement of what the program really is. He talked about certification, he talked about compliance, he talked about enforcement, he talked about opportunity, and he alluded to, if you heard him carefully, he talked about somebody trying to use him as a pass-through. And those are the kinds of things that strengthening enforcement will address in the future. And thank you, Norma, for recognizing that this city is really moving at this stage. It is a very hot city at this stage, and there will be people who will come here, those looking for business and those who want jobs. First and foremost, those who've been here and have made the commitment, those businesses are the ones that we want to try to help grow. And the people who need a job in the District of Columbia are the people who we want to put to work. And this is an opportunity to be able to do that. Councilmember Orange is here with us today. He has oversight of the small local business program here in the District of Columbia. I don't know how many hearings he's had just in the last few months, but a lot, including bringing in virtually every agency within the government. So his commitment is unquestioned, and I'm delighted that he's here today. We've promised him, as you heard from Harold, that we'll get the legislation to him not by the 31st, before the 31st. and then we look forward to try to get it done by the end of this council period, which would be the end of December. So please join me in welcoming Councilmember Vincent Orange.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a beautiful day for us to be here to talk about the nation's capital small local business program. I'm very pleased to be here. I've just received this package, opportunity to really investigate. It's always the devil's in the details. But I will say that I'm pleased to hear that there are 19 recommendations. In a quick cursory review of it, I see that at least 6 legislative items will come to my committee. I can assure you that once that legislative package is delivered, we will set a hearing and we will move extremely expediently on this particular process to make sure that we tighten up the small and local business development and make sure that our CBEs can be able to participate in what's taking place here in the nation's capital. I have to go back to, I guess it was 2001, 2002, when Chairman Linda Kropp provided me the opportunity to chair the Committee on Government Operations. And during that time, I ascertained that there was only one agency that was in compliance with a law on our books that indicates that all agencies must spend at least 50% of their expendable budgets with our CBEs. And at that time, it was only about $90 million that was being spent. Over a 4-year period, we took that compliance in the second year, I think, to about 37 of the 56. Then we got up to 47 of the 56. And finally, 54 of the 56 agencies were in compliance. And what did that mean in terms of dollars? We went from $98 million of spending with our CBEs to in excess of $567 million. And we got this certified, got this document from Dr. Gandhi that would detail how these dollars are being spent. Unfortunately, during the Fenty administration, there was never a hearing held again on CBE compliance, and the money just went in other directions. When I came back to the council, met with the mayor was a very willing party. He said, if you want to call in all the agencies, just make sure you don't hold them up all day. And I assured him that I would only probably need 2 or 3 minutes with each one of them, because I'm going to give them the questions in the beginning. Only thing I want to know is, are you expending 50% of your budget with CBEs? And to let them know, I guess for lack of a better term, the sheriff is back, and we're going to make sure that we get this program rolling again. We were able to ascertain that the business community got shortchanged to the tune of about $400 million in fiscal year 2011. But I can tell you, since that hearing and with the backing of the mayor, we're off and running again. We believe that compliance is the order of the day. We have set a hearing for December 6th. Assured us once again that all the agency heads will be in place, but Vincent Orange, don't keep them all day. And I've agreed that we will not keep them all day. When we look at this particular area, there's 3 things that I'm concerned about. One is what I just talked about, making sure that those dollars are spent with our CBEs. The other items I'm concerned about is CBE participation of 35% for district finance or land use projects. We must have at least 35% participation. And I'm looking to Director Harold Pettigrew to be able to push a button and give me that information, in a very expedient manner. The other item that I'm looking at is the equity participation. 20% development and our equity participation by CBEs on district finance and land use projects. I think those are the key to making sure that the CBE project is working properly. And in addition to that, we have to get on top of the entire JV arena, joint ventures. We have to make sure that when we put these particular relationships together, that they're viable, that they're not a sham. And so we're going to have to tweak the law a little bit, I believe, to make sure that we're putting together partnerships that can really work. And we really have to look at the bonding. So I'm very pleased to be here today with all these fine gentlemen. I work very closely with the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development. He tells me he's going to create 55,000 jobs over the next decade. So I hold him to these numbers. I remember these numbers. But I also know that we have 35,000 unemployed people. So I want to make sure there's an overlap, that we are connecting D.C. residents to these jobs that we're going to be creating. There's going to be many jobs over here at this city center. The Convention Center Hotel, we already know there will be 1,000 permanent jobs. We're going to need maids. We're going to need electricians. Someone has to work the front desk. Someone has to work in the hotel. Let's go train our people to take these jobs. And we have advance notice. And before I take my seat, let me get one more commercial in. And that is, I believe that we should be taking our training dollars and putting them up at our community college and let them create the curriculums for workforce development. I should be able to look at our community college and say, for all these jobs that are going to come from Walmart, the cashier jobs, the people that are going to stock the shelves, they're being trained up at our community college right now. Costco is going to open in November of this year. I would like to see our people being trained for those jobs right now. Our people should be trained for these jobs right here. And we can also help the institution of UDC and the community college by putting our training dollars there. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for allowing me the time to give that commercial in to let you know what's on my heart, what's on my mind, the circulation of the D.C. dollar in D.C. so it can be subject to D.C. taxation. Because if you're paying taxes here, if you're doing business here, if you're incorporated here, you will pay taxes. If everybody here was D.C. residents and we employed all of you, we would get employment taxes from you. And then we take those dollars and we circulate the dollars in our communities. That's how we build up our community. And I believe that the mayor gets it, and I'm pleased to work with the mayor and with the deputy mayor, with Harold Pettigrew, and with all our CBEs, people like Norman Jenkins, people like Jaru, people like Hanuk back in the back of U Street Parking, people like Gilbert's Signs, Luke Brockney. We just need to help everybody. Even the Washington Foreman needs to get the business when we go out and advertise. We want to help everybody in D.C. We want to be selfish about that dollar. It's our dollar, and like Calvin Rolock used to say, ain't nobody going to help us but us. So let's start helping ourselves. Thank you very much.
Could you tell us how you really feel? You know, Councilmember Orange made an important point, and we really have focused a lot on a reform of the workforce development system in the city. And it certainly includes the community college. It includes the Workforce Investment Council, which we have substantially reformed. It is fully resourced at this stage. Mike Harold is the chair. Allison Gerber is the director. I think you know what's going on at the Department of Employment Services. We've created a workforce intermediary that is focusing on two key areas, construction and hospitality. And frankly, being able to get the community college working at its capacity will contribute further to our efforts to be able to get people back to work. And by the way, we'll have new unemployment data on Friday for the month of September. And I can't give you the information at this stage because it's embargoed, but we'll be happy to see that information when it comes out. So I think we're continuing to go in the right direction. With that having been said, why don't we open it up to any questions you may have on this, CBE issue. Mark.
Mr. Mayor, I have one question for Mr. Jones, and then let me start with Mr. Jones. Congratulations on your business growth, but you mentioned you have 72 hires. How many of those 72 hires are D.C. residents?
I think within the 72 hires now, it's just not with us, it's also with our partner with Harmon as well. And I know that we just brought on 4 this week. I think 2 of them are DC hires. So I think at least we're at about 20 of the 72, I think, are DC residents. And I think out of that 20, I think about 15 are apprentices.
I'm unfamiliar. Is there a requirement, yes, for CBEs in terms of DC residents? And in this project, maybe Bill knows, how many do you tally how many people? I realize people can move after they're hired, but in terms of when they're hired, how many of these hires are D.C. residents? Is there an obligation within, or a thought within the legislation to make sure that not only you have D.C. businesses, but the D.C. businesses that are certified hire D.C. residents?
Well, I think you know, Mark, that I asked Bill to come up to talk about the larger project, if you would, Bill. But there's a first source requirement that's associated with these projects, and the legislation was strengthened earlier this year around first source requirements. And that does require that overall 51% of the new hires on a project like this be people who are district residents. Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I carry a tracking sheet because they ask me this about every 2 weeks. And the deputy mayor actually has me in about once a month. 2 groups, Mark. And this is the construction-related jobs, the real jobs. One in the CBE area. The project had a requirement of a 35% of eligible costs. In this construction area, the general contractor is the venture between Clark, Smoot, and McKissick. And that team took on that obligation in good faith. And out of the total contract value of $397 million, there's $177 million in contracts to certified to CBEs. That's 44.6% of the total, with the goal of 35%. That is the best result we have seen a general contractor accomplish. I think a number that also means a lot is that those CBEs are 79 different companies, 79 different CBE subcontractors on this job. Then in terms of the DC residents result, we had a 51% of new hires objective. So for the combined general contractor, subcontractor teams, out of a total of 560 new hires, this was as of September 30th, so this one moves slower than contracts, which you do in advance. There are 272 of the 560 new hires are DC residents. That's 49%. And on the 36 total apprentices, 23 are DC residents, or 64%. So, Mr. Mayor, that's our basic tracking.
I think it's very impressive. Clearly, when you talk about the level of contracting with CBEs, that, what, $177 million, I think you said, Bill? We've got some work to do, obviously, with the hiring, but we're close to the 51% requirement, and I'm absolutely certain that we'll make that. And, one of the things that's important about this, too, is that from the contracting perspective, with increasing the compliance and enforcement, these things are going to be paid even closer attention to. And then strengthening the first source law, who gets hired on these projects is being paid closer attention to as well. And again, to use an adage that a lot of people use, what gets measured gets done. And we're looking for the conformance with the contracting requirements and conformance with the hiring requirements.
Mr. Jones, talk about the skilled or lack thereof labor force in D.C. Is there a problem with finding qualified D.C. residents to do these jobs?
Yeah. You hear the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
We first of all try to get people to have some basic construction knowledge. But that's not a requirement, because again, we have the apprenticeship program. So through the apprenticeship program, not only are they going to learn on-the-job training, but as I said, they're required to go to class at least 2 days a week through the Ironworkers Union.
Are most of the D.C. residents going into the apprenticeship program? What about professional, fully trained workers? Are you having problems finding those living in the district?
Well, most of our hires come through the Ironworkers Union, so they pretty much send me referrals through their members. And in turn, in most cases, a lot of them are journeymen, which have been in the union for a while. So they're our most skilled labor.
They're non-residents. They're not D.C. residents.
No, sir. No, we have journeymen that are D.C. residents as well. Now, that's a requirement. We want to make sure across the board that both the journeymen as well as the superintendents, the crew chiefs, and the apprentices are D.C. residents.
Let me try to be clear on this, because I think this is important. When they put up the new convention center, it was like you had two labor forces. You had the skilled workers, who were mostly non-residents. The DC residents were going into the apprenticeship program, different pay scale. You know, they were not in the union. They had complaints with the union because they felt they didn't have enough membership in the union. I'm asking, is that the case here? You're still finding that to be a problem here?
No, sir, that's not a problem with us. Basically, what I've been doing, too, is sending the union to join, and then in turn getting them a referral to come here to the site.
Getting in the union.
Yes, sir.
Them in.
Yes, sir. I personally have sent several members, and this is not the only project I've been working on. I've been working on Progression Place as well, U.S. Coast Guard. So in every case, I have personally interviewed and sent D.C. residents to the Local 5, and then in turn, Local 5 will sign them up. They do a orientation period, and then they send them a referral, and that referral has their salary as well as whether or not they apprentice. And at that point in time, we give them a drug test, and then we do new hire papers on them.
You know, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Bruce, but it seems to me a part of your question is whether, for what's being created in the city, do we have people who are unqualified for those positions? I think the answer is unequivocally yes. If you go back and look over a period of years, a lot of the so-called vocational education programs, career and technical training programs were eliminated from our schools. We look at a lot of our training programs at the next level up, and that is, at least from the city's perspective, there was not the level of cohesion and coordination that should have existed. That's what the reform of our overall workforce development system is about. It isn't just an absence of jobs in the District of Columbia. It's oftentimes a mismatch between the jobs that are being created and the skills, if you will, of the people who need jobs. So that's an enormous task that we are undertaking, and we know it's not going to change overnight. That's why we've got to change the workforce development system, reintroduce career and technical training programs into our schools, and make sure that the training programs that we fund now through the WIC, the Workforce Investment Council, as well as the Department of Employment Services, are compatible with what's being created in the city. Alan?
What kind of penalties? It just says there's the DSLBD would like to assign penalties. It doesn't say what they would be. Except for the joint venture violators, it says that they would not receive preference points for 2 years. That seems kind of weak. I mean, if you're talking about a $100 million project, you know, I think a lot of people would roll the dice and take that chance.
Yeah.
And there's no actual fines or clawbacks or anything like that.
Let me ask the Deputy Mayor and Harold to speak to that. But I think as a general proposition, Alan, we want the penalties associated with this to be severe enough to get people's attention, and frankly, that if you do violate the law in these instances, you know, you could be could be tantamount to putting yourself out of business.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, that was spot on, Alan. What we're going to do is develop a fine schedule that'll be through regulation, that'll outline those different areas. General principle that we apply with assigning penalties account for the amount, in the case of a development project for someone that doesn't meet their respective goal, accounts to what that amount should have been in terms of expenditures with certified companies. But when we get to joint ventures and CBEs, the notion of penalties in any instance are to disincent. So we want to make sure that we set the levels at a place where people will not act or they understand the repercussions of their actions, as well as the actions to revoke any certifications of companies that are bad actors. So it's not just the penalties, but also the act of taking away their opportunity to participate in the program.
It's kind of like speed cameras, Alan. If the fine isn't severe enough, people it won't matter whether they speed or not. It'll be okay to pay the ticket. We'll take two more questions on this. Ms. Brazil and then Mark C. Grace.
In large measure, today's press conference has been prompted by the work that Alan Suderman has done in the city paper over the past 3 months. And in those articles, he's detailed a situation wherein the Department of General Services and OBEFM, through its tremendous capital budget, has been able to award contracts to companies that were sham joint ventures, sham CBEs. In today's press conference, you're emphasizing your reform of the CBE program, and you have Mr. Pettigrew here. But the elephant that's in the room is DGS and Alan Liu and the Office of OBEFM and DGS. What reforms are you going to impose on them as regards making sure we don't have sham joint ventures and sham CBEs?
Well, I think one of the purposes, Mr. Brazil, first of all, let me say that a lot of this has been informed by the request on my part several months ago to do a comprehensive and thorough review of the CBE program. So while we certainly appreciate the work of Alan Suderman, it is not the only thing that informed this effort moving forward. But I'm sure he appreciates the accolade that you gave him. Absolutely. This is on tape, and I'm sure will be reported. Let me ask Brian Hanlon to come up, but you have to remember that a lot of the work done on these projects, these very large projects, is being done by CBEs in the first place. When you look at the City Center project, for example, which is a private sector project, you just heard that $177 million of those contracts already are going to CBEs, which is a very substantial, let me finish, which is a very substantial part of the work that is going out into the community. And the other side of this, of course, are the government buildings that are being recreation centers. And let me ask Brian to address that.
Thanks. I didn't hear all of your question. I heard Elephant and Alan Suderman and Alan Liu. So I guess I would say first of all, I embrace this opportunity. This is something that we take seriously as an agency. I do personally. I'm grateful for the mayor's leadership and vision on this. DGS, which is now a year old, has been pushing the envelope with every project that it does to expand opportunities for the local and small vendors and the CBE market in the District of Columbia. And we have taken, DSLBD has numbers that require 35%, and DGS has a self-imposed 50% minimum on CBE participation on projects. And that we have exceeded that 50% across our history. And in this past summer, we have projects that are in the 60s. 60% of the workforce are CBEs. We measure number of hours worked by district residents. Just to give an example, on our workforce incentive program across this summer, approximately 50% of the hours were worked by district residents on those projects. So it's something that we embrace. It's something we take seriously. And I'm looking forward to continuing to partner with Harold Pettigrew and, of course, with the mayor's leadership to expand and improve this program.
You were at the council hearing last week, as I was. You heard Forrester Construction Company say that their joint venture with EEC of DC was a total sham. ECDC did not do 51% of the work. They didn't even control the bank account. They weren't even bonded. They don't even retain the books on the project. And meanwhile, DGS continued to approve payments to this sham joint venture, and now is approving change orders. Don't you think that the burden falls on DGS as well as on Mr. Pettigrew to make sure we're not having sham CBEs and sham joint ventures?
Well, you've got a number of questions embedded in that, so let me address, first of all, the last week's hearing was really focused on change order number 27 on the Anacostia High School project. And the payment, the entire amount of those funds within that change order are entirely dedicated towards subcontractor work. There's not a penny in that change order that's part of fees or general conditions for Forrester or EEC. So that our testimony was really about making sure that the subs got paid. They did the work, they deserve to get paid. So yeah, we do take seriously. I want all of our contractors and our CBEs and our CBE joint ventures to be relationships that have integrity. And yes, we play a shared role in making sure that occurs. With regard to, I'm not sure I heard Forrester say their relationship was a sham. I think I heard that from the dais. Right now, That is, I believe, in the process of going through some civil litigation, and I don't know what the outcome of that is today.
You told me a month ago that
Hold on, Alan. Hold on, I'll come back to you. Hold on. That's why we created DGS, one of the reasons we created it in the first place. As you all well know, many of you have been around this city for a very long time. The government construction activity was spread all over the government. We had the fire department. We had the police department. We had schools. We had the recreation department. We probably had anywhere from a half a dozen to 10 different agencies engaged in this. One of the reasons for creating DGS was to be able to create a more cohesive and coherent approach to how the public's construction program was being administered. This agency has been in place for 1 year, and we are making progress. You can see right now you can go to one place. You all were a year ago. You couldn't have gone to one place to ask these questions. And had we had this press conference under that structure, you would have been asking where X is, because X probably wouldn't have been here to be able to answer that question. So in bringing these elements together, it is a way of increasing accountability. And I think I know you're going to see additional accountability as a result of this approach, which is now, again, not to be repetitive, but I will be, has been in place for precisely 1 year. Alan?
Brian just said that they're waiting for the courts to settle whether what happened at Anacostia, what happened there. Brian told me last month, and I'll share the email with you, that after two to 3 months of investigating, DGS found that there were problems in early March. Then they negotiated with both companies, trying to assign a 2-year penalty to both companies that fell through when the two companies sued each other. It's now October. DGS has known since March there was problems with this joint venture, and they haven't done anything. And now they're saying it's the courts. I mean, do you think that's how DGS ought to operate?
I think DGS ought to operate in the most efficient and effective. Let me finish. I listened to you, okay? It obviously ought to operate in the most efficient and effective way, but it also ought to do it systematically so that as it executes these things, we know that we've got the facts straight. Brian, do you want to add to that?
Sure, I would just say, there is a thing called due process, and it's, I don't think it's in the district's best interest or, frankly, a professional best interest for us to just pull the trigger. If we had terminated those contracts back in March, we would not have gotten the school finished. I don't think we would have served anybody.
You can't tell me what you're doing about it.
It has been referred to the Attorney General's office. When? A couple weeks ago.
Not in March?
No.
No. Thank you.
As he said, it's been referred to the Attorney General's office, Alan. Mark?
The term bad actors several times, the word sham CBEs. I'm wondering if Mr. Pettigrew maybe has some numbers on his review of how big a universe are we talking about? How big a problem is this with
I'll have him answer, but I tell you, I think given the extent of resources that they had, I'm not sure that DSLBD can actually answer that question comprehensively. They have 20 people working in that agency. In some instances, I think compliance had nobody or half a person or one person working in it. Grossly undermanned, which unfortunately is fertile territory then for permitting these kinds of problems to continue and maybe even grow. So one of the things that we're doing as a part of this reform effort is, frankly, increasing the resources so that compliance and enforcement actually have more teeth in them than what they have now.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's spot on, Mark. That what we do know and what I wanted to articulate is, sure, we would be naive to say that perhaps there are some population of companies that may not continue to represent what they may have at the point of getting certified. But I think there's a balance to be struck. One, that realistically we haven't had the resources. Again, we're talking about, in some of the information you may have, in upwards of 700 cases that a compliance team, in terms of our full responsibility, is to manage. And because of actions in the past, the entire compliance and enforcement operation was removed from the agency, and this was 2 years ago, leaving the agency with to on the compliance and enforcement side of things, be able to look into those types of instances. So that's going to be part of our priority, to paint the picture of what we are dealing with compliance and enforcement, not only with certified companies, not only with joint ventures, but also with agencies, with development projects as well.
Is a percentage, a ballpark?
No, because again, we haven't had the staff to make that determination. Yes, sir.
How many revocations have you actually done of CBE? Or are you telling me that the compliance office is so deficient that you haven't done anything?
As the mayor pointed out earlier, DSLBD, nor I as the director, have the authority to revoke. That's an action of the commission. And so what we've seen, I think, over the last 3 years or so.
Ended any revocation?
What we've seen over the last 3 years or so, there's been, I think, one hearing maybe. So there's been very little action. But from our agency recommending, I think there's also been one that's been noted a couple years back.
You know, excuse me for using a sports metaphor, but we started this by saying we actually don't have any home run hitters on this team. And you keep saying, so how many home runs have you hit? We don't have any home run hitters on this. How many home runs have you hit? We're trying to tell you that the purpose of today is to enter into a reform of an agency that we know has been grossly undermanned and outflanked. And that's the purpose of this. So the questions that you're asking us, I think we've acknowledged that those are problems, and we want to solve those problems. There's a whole heap of recommendations that came forward. I don't know, somewhere between 15 and 20. Some of them were discussed today. Some of them will be the subject of legislation. Some will be the subject of regulatory reform. And some of them will be the subject of administrative action that will take place in the agency. But the purpose is to get to the very things that you all are asking, because I think that's what we admitted to in the beginning. These problems have been around for years, and they're going to be addressed. And, you know, yes, I don't know how many there are, how many people, you know, how many firms have gamed the system, but we know that there are. And gaming the system will have consequences in the future. So thank you all very much for being here on that subject today, and we'll take questions on other subjects. Tom?
A few months ago, when the advocacy community came, people like DC Vote, and they brought up the charter referendum on budget autonomy. I understand that Irv Nathan drafted a legal opinion about potential pitfalls in that. I asked for that legal opinion. They said it was privileged. I tried to FOIA it. I couldn't get it. That doesn't seem very transparent. Why can't the public see that legal opinion?
I think this is a product of the Attorney General's office, and I try to respect, you know, the position that they take on these issues. So, Tom, I would suggest that you talk with the Attorney General directly about that. He has a point of view on it, and I would invite him to talk with you about it.
I mean, this is the topic.
I don't choose to compel him to do that in this instance. You know, I've indicated very clearly that I support budget autonomy. I've certainly indicated I have some questions about this approach, but we want to work in concert, you know, with our legislative partners to be able to achieve an outcome in which the District of Columbia will be able to make our decisions, and they will be final decisions about the deployment of our resources. So I don't think the goal, in fact, I'm sure that the goal of the legislative body and the executive in this instance are the same. We may have some different points of view about how we get there, and this may be one of them. So that's really that's all I'm prepared to say at this point. Mark?
As you full well know, and I've said repeatedly, the President of the United States got 92% of the vote in the District of Columbia, carried every precinct in the primary, every precinct in the general, and I'm sure his numerical majority will be similar this time. And please be specific. If the President should win, what do you expect from him in terms of the District of Columbia, and specifically in terms of the license plate, where he told you personally, I've never seen it in print, that he told us that the Secret Service told him that he couldn't put it on his limousine. Will you be as specific as possible about what you want from this president?
Well, you know, he has indicated a commitment to, a support for, let me put it that way, support for budget autonomy. And I think that's a major step towards the district being able to gain better control of our own destiny, much as, as the other states do. So the first thing I will be looking for, Mark, is that commitment and then action to be able to fulfill that commitment. We obviously know that it's not completely within his hands, although his support is hugely important. I mean, look at some of his own initiatives that have come out of the executive branch of the, from the White House that haven't moved forward because he's had to deal with a Congress that was simply not in concert with him and didn't want to move it forward. So with specificity, that's what I want to see first, and then we'll see where we go from there. No.
Are you disappointed by the president's record so far on
I've indicated, Ben, that I'm supporting the president's reelection, and I hope that in this second term that he will be able to do more for the District of Columbia and for the nation. Mark?
Did you want to finish
Do you feel personally snubbed by him? He hasn't appeared in public with you, and you weren't invited to the State of the Union?
Well, what?
Do you feel personally snubbed by the
No.
president?
No.
Along those lines of you're telling us you're going to vote for President Obama, will you tell us who else you're going to vote for on November 6th?
No. Are you asking me for the same question at the last press briefing?
Yes, sir. I am.
Endorsements. I haven't really that.
Are you? Do you?
But I am going to vote for President Obama.
But you can't even tell us that you'll vote for Yvette Alexander in Ward 7?
Well, I probably will vote for Yvette Alexander. Yes. How about Vincent Orange? Would you? Let's see. Let's do it one by one, drip by drip by drip.
He's a Democrat. You are a Democrat.
That's true. You're a Democrat. Who are you voting for?
I'm not. I don't have to answer that.
Oh, really? You ask all the questions. I want to know who you're voting for, Mark.
Mr. Orange,
who are you voting for, Mark Seagraves? You live in the District of Columbia. You have children in our public schools. Who are you voting for?
I learned the hard way not to answer your questions, sir. So you won't say whether beyond. You won't say categorically.
I'm not going any further with that today.
But can I ask a different topic then?
What?
Speed cameras. Councilmember Wells has introduced legislation to cap the fines on speed cameras at $50. You alluded to this earlier. If that hits your desk, will you sign that, or would you veto?
Well, I'd like to see how it would hit my desk first of all, because obviously someone's going to have to demonstrate how it would be paid for. So that's the first question. What will the fiscal impact statement look like? And frankly, I have said from the very beginning that the camera program in the city is a program that is designed to increase public safety. And those measures that will improve public safety, that will prevent traffic fatalities, that will prevent traffic accidents as a result of speeding in particular, or giving properly pedestrian right-of-way in our streets. Those are the things that I will support. And we know that these cameras have actually, the enforcement of infractions actually has resulted in improved traffic safety outcomes. So that's the measure that I want to look at, and we'll work with the council on this legislation as it moves through. And we probably will have our own ideas. We'll have our own plan on this as well.
It sounded earlier like you don't support lowering them to $50.
I didn't say that.
Well, I could go back, but you took
that's,
a little.
That's you are speculating.
Do you support lowering the fines?
I support what will optimize traffic safety in the District of Columbia.
If I could follow up, because just before that, the first thing you said as your reservation about lowering the fines was, how would you pay for that? That feeds the impression to drivers in the district that this is about revenue and not about safety.
No, it doesn't.
Well, if it's
no,
not
it
about
doesn't.
revenue,
It means that we have a balanced budget at this stage, and we'll have to retain a balanced budget. So when it comes to that, like any other measure, somebody will have to demonstrate how the budget will continue to be balanced.
One of the thoughts is that the proliferation of more and more cameras will issue more and more tickets, and that would allow the fines to come down. Does that?
Well, hopefully that case will be made along the way then, Mark. Thank you all very much. Mike, you get the last question.
Part of that legislation has an element of a grace period so that drivers, if they get hit by a new camera and get multiple tickets in 1 week, that they'd be warned of that camera before they get hit with all those fines. Would you be open to a grace period like that with the cameras?
I actually have not read the legislation yet. I want to review the legislation. I want to get the experts within our administration to be able to review it, and we'll have our own ideas as well. So rather than just speculate, Mike, on pieces of it at this stage, I'd rather have a comprehensive statement about this whole issue as we review it. Thank you all very much.